land explored by our ancestors extends from Altai to the White Sea. The scientific expedition Trails of Nomads continues to unveil the path of our forefathers. A group of scientists, led by pilgrim of the 21st century Sapar Iskak, has already visited more than 50 countries. Scientists reveal the exciting secrets of the past. Watch an amazing story of a great journey in the Trails of Nomads program. Scientific expedition Trails of Nomads reached Myanmar. Why did the ruler of Pagan build high fortresses? How did the Kipchak-born commander Tutuha stop 2,000 elephants? Are there traces of our ancestors in the Schwedagon Pagoda? This is Yangon City, located 4,404 kilometers from the capital of Kazakhstan, Nur-Sultan. The scientific expedition led by the historian researcher Sapar Iskak reached Yangon by plane en route Surabaya-Singapore-Yangon. Researchers aim at collecting information about ancestors in Myanmar. Myanmar is a state on the Indochina Peninsula in Southeast Asia. In terms of area, it ranks 39th in the world. By population, it occupies the 25th place. In the 11th, 13th centuries, the pagan kingdom existed in the present place of Myanmar. After 3 campaigns of the troops of Kublai, the state weakened and disintegrated. In all these 3 campaigns, the Mongol army included our ancestors, representatives of various Turkic tribes. The group led by Sapar Iskak flew from Yangon to Nyangu to learn more about the kingdom of Pagan. Now there is an archaeological complex on the site of the ancient state. Archaeological excavations are currently underway at this site. Here we see the places where the palaces of the kings stood. We wondered where the upper domes are. According to local residents and local historians, all the palaces were built of wood. The wood, of course, cannot survive for 800 years. It rots. It can also burn out. But the lower part, the foundation, has been preserved. Pagan is an archaeological area. Today it is the backbone of the tourism industry in Myanmar. Here on the area of 40 square kilometers, about 4,000 temples, amazing in their architecture, have been preserved. Most of them were built in the 11th, 13th centuries. This is an archaeological site that was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2019.
Pagan, бұл орта ғасырлық Buddha.
Pagan is, one might say, a medieval Buddhist state. The state of Pagan existed from 1044 to 1287. At that time, the construction of temples became traditional. Each ruler who came to power had to build his own temple. Everyone wanted to distinguish themselves and surprise the people by erecting temples, one better than the other. It was a kind of competition. As a result, there are a lot of Buddhist temples in Pagan. More than 5,000 temples were built here.
Buddha храмдары өте көп салынды. Тек қана Паган қаласының өзінде 5,000 сыртында храм салынды.
In 1271, Kublai Khan, who created an empire in China based on the Chinese administration, sent ambassadors to all the kingdoms of Southeast Asia. A document prescribing the recognition and submission of the Yuan Empire, as well as the payment of the corresponding taxes, was also delivered to the kingdom of Pagan. But his ruler left his message unanswered. 2 years later, the Mongolian Khagan sent a letter for the second time. Based on the information from the Yuan Shi chronicles, the ruler of the Pagan kingdom, Narati Hapati, beheaded ambassadors sent by Kublai. The enraged Khagan sent a huge army to Myanmar in 1277.
12,000 қолмен Қыпшақ тайпасынан шыққан қолбасшы Tutu.
Kipchak-born military leader Tutuha attacked Myanmar with a 12,000-strong army. He was opposed by a 60,000 army and 2,000 fighting elephants, prepared for war. Myanmar warriors first launched 2,000 elephants into the attack. Each of them had about 10 archers. However, army under the command of the brave Kipchak tackled the war. Battle was like a native element, and they perfectly mastered the tactical methods of battle and were always determined only to win. Seeing the elephants, the horses of our warriors began to get scared. After that, Tutuha gave another command. He ordered everyone to get off their horses, tie them to the trees, and attack on foot and shoot with bows at the elephants. When the warriors began to shower the animals with arrows from their bows, the wounded elephants turned back and trampled on their own warriors. So Tutuha managed to win without much effort. The famous Venetian traveler Marco Polo also took part in this battle. He was an advisor to Kublai Khan. All these events, including the victory in the battle with 2,000 war elephants, were described by the European scientist. He noted that he saw blood flowing along the ground like water. The results of this battle are very interesting. Believe it or not, the losses on the part of the Mongol army amounted to 1 person. Myanmar warriors fought with their own elephants. As a result, about 600 to 700 people survived out of the 60,000 strong army. The rest all died on the battlefield. All this was described by Marco Polo. During this battle, warlord Tutuha was seriously wounded. In addition, the entire Mongol army could hardly withstand the 40-50 degree tropical heat of Myanmar. So the brave Tutuha returned to his homeland with another victory.
Ал енді Тоқтықтың өзіне келетін болсақ, Тоқтықтың шыққан жері бұл Алтайдың солтүстігіндегі Андаган таулары. Олар өздерін сол кезінде
Tutuha was born in the north of Altai. He comes from a Kipchak tribe. Translated into Chinese, the word Kipchak sounds like Sin Cha. Father of Tutuha, Bandu Cha, also fought. He was always close to the grandson of Genghis Khan Kublai. After the death of his father, all his regalia and achievements passed to Tutuha. Later, Tutuha rose to the rank of commander of the Kangli Kipchak army.
Содан кейін барып Тотық ол кезіндегі мынау Қыпшақ қаңлы әскерлерінің басшысына шейін қол жетеді.
These are the remains of the huge fortress of the pagan kingdom. The height of the red brick fortification is about 6 meters. When the ruler, Naradi Hapadi, learned that the army of Kublai Khan was heading to Pagan, he hastily began to build up the walls of the fortress. Once upon a time, this fortress had 12 gates, and this is the main gate, Tarabha, that has survived to this day. It was in this place that the Mongol army met with the army of Pagan, and the battle began. During the first campaign, they did not reach the city of Pagan. They captured Nanchong and Nanlin bordering China. In 1283, there was a new campaign, and they reached the city of Mandalay. In 1287, the city of Pagan was conquered, but they did not harm any religious buildings. Six years later, in 1283, the Mongol army attacked the kingdom of Pagan for the second time and won again.
Сол уақытында король болып тұрған Нарати Хапати тауға қарай қашып құтылған. Бірақ оның осындай ісіне жұрт наразы болып.
The king, Narati Hapati, fled to the mountains. People condemned this act, and as a result, their ruler was overthrown and soon died. The next king recognized Mongol supremacy. He sent a delegation to them with many gifts, gold and silver. Thus, a new vassal kingdom was created.
Алтын, күміс жағындай сыйлықтармен. Содан бастап, бұл арада жағында вассалдық корольдық пайда болады.
A blue stone from the 13th century was found near the Tarabha Gate. The history says that in 1285, Myanmar people sent a monk named Disapramuk to Kublai Khan for peace negotiations. He convinced the emperor to withdraw the troops from Pagan. This story is described on a blue stone named after the monk Disapramuk. In the same place, according to the researchers, there is a decree of Kublai Khan on the prohibition of causing damage to buildings and structures. The blue stone, which was installed at the entrance to the city in the 13th century, is today kept in the Pagan Archaeological Museum. In 1287, the grandson of Kublai, Timur, made a trip to Pagan for the third time.
Юань-Моңғол империясының 3-ші жорығы 1287 жылы басталды. Оны бастап келген, үлкен қолды бастап келген Kublai Khanның немересі Ису Тимур болды.
The third campaign of the Yuan Empire began in 1287. The huge army was led by Kublai's grandson Timur. Passing through the Chinese border, in a short time they captured the main city of the Pagan Empire, the city of Pagan. They drove out all the previous rulers and appointed a new puppet king, Choswan, pleasing to the Chinese emperor. He agreed to pay special taxes to the ruler of the Yuan Empire, Kublai, every year.
Содан кейін ол Қытайға, не болмаса, Юань империясының императоры Kublai Ханға жыл сайын өзінің салығын апарып беретін болып солай деп келіседі.
Thus, the army of Kublai Khan went to the kingdom of Pagan 3 times and won 3 times. On the last campaign, the Mongols determined the amount of tax for their protege Choswan and returned to their homeland. The foundations of the walls surrounding the fortress were laid in the 10th century, but the walls were expanded and built up. In addition, a moat was dug outside. Yet all these measures did not help, and the fortress was abandoned, and its defenders fled. The scientific expedition team visited the most majestic, the most ancient, and the most famous complex of temples, the Swazi-Gan Pagoda. According to historians, this complex was built by King Anorak in 1087. During its prosperity, the pagan kingdom was the most advanced in terms of the number of Buddhist temples and pagodas erected. It had no equal in the whole world.
Schwedagon деген ол мынау аударған уақытында жеңіс кепілдігі деп.
Schwedagon in translation means a guarantee of victory. There is an explanation for this. At the base, that is, in the foundation of the Schwedagon, as they say, there is a tooth of the Buddha. There are his ribs and other bones. And on the outside, it is completely trimmed with gold. If our ancestors were chasing profit and had no respect towards another religion, then of course they would have plundered the Schwedagon. But they did not. The Schwedagon was built in 1087. Our ancestors came to this land in 1287, that is, 200 years later, and everything remained safe and sound. The Schwedagon has stood in its place for thousands of years. Another structure that shocked the members of the expedition was the Qazaq cave. Why a cave? Because it is made of bricks. Its length is 24 meters and height is 9 meters. This is a dark corridor with 4 entrances. It is a holy place where monks prayed. It is located near the settlement of Nyangu.
Pagan қаласындағы тағы бір өте сондай бір маңызды объекттердің біреуі бұл Киансит Тарумин.
Another very important site in the city of Pagan is Qazaq TV. We were there, went inside, as there are traces of our ancestors. These are frescoes painted on the walls of the temple. We found 5-6 frescoes out of many. They were made by the hands of our ancestors. Everything is visible there. Ancestors and a military leader are sitting. There are records of how they fought. According to some historians, these frescoes were painted by the Tatar conquerors. Our ancestors were called Tatars. Then all the Turkic tribes from Dashti Kipchak were called by one common word, Tatars.
Татарлар деп отқаны біздің бабаларымыз ол кезінде күллі мынау Дешті Кыпчақтан келген түрк тайпаларының бәрі де татар деп бір-ақ сөзбен айта салған тарихшылар.
Participants of the expedition Trails of Nomads found a lot of valuable information in the archaeological complex of Pagan. Every brick, every temple located there is like a historical document telling about the political and social life of the 13th century. Structures are silent witnesses of the past. The members of the expedition traveled through the territory of the Kingdom of Bagan, collected the necessary information in Yangon and returned to Yangon. Yangon is one of the largest cities in Myanmar. Its population is 7 million people. It is an economic, cultural, scientific, and educational center. The largest transport hub in the region is also located here. In Yangon, there is one of the most amazing architectural monuments, which is called the Golden Glory of Myanmar, the Schwedagon Pagoda. This famous structure is under the protection of UNESCO. The height of the largest dome of the Schwedagon temple complex is 98 meters. There are 70 small temples and pavilions around it, the domes of which are decorated with gold. They also have huge bells. For example, the weight of the Mahatisada bell is 42 tons. The top of the Schwedagon Pagoda is adorned with 5,500 diamonds and over 2,000 gems. However, only monks are allowed to climb the dome. If there were not 8 wonders of the world, but 100, then Schwedagon would certainly enter the top 10 structures. Many tourists come here. Of course, our ancestors were not originally here. Many pilgrims worshipping Buddha frequently come here with tourists. After all, only in Schwedagon there are as many as 4 monuments, 4 shrines of the Buddha. There is a ritual in the Schwedagon Pagoda to pour water on the Buddha from a silver bowl. People believe that it helps them cleanse themselves as well as make their dreams come true. The members of the expedition, as a sign of respect for local culture and traditions, also performed this ritual. They poured water on the Buddha from a silver bowl. For 2 weeks, we have visited all the southeastern states. Our main goal is to find traces of our ancestors, expanding the boundaries of our national history and transferring all this data to the younger generation. Thus, the work of the participants of the scientific expedition Trails of Nomads in the countries of Southeast Asia ended in Myanmar. The group led by Sapari Skak found a lot of information about heroic deeds and difficulties that our ancestors faced during their campaigns in this part of the earth. A lot of materials have been collected, proving that the Kublai Khan army included representatives of the clans which today are the main core of the Kazakh people. Information confirms that many people from Turkic tribes took part in military campaigns on this land. They were respected and authoritative military leaders. All these facts are now recorded in the video archives. Those who want to study the history of their people, explore the history of their ancestors, especially young people, should visit all these places. There is a lot of work and materials, a large field of activity for historians. To study and know the history of ancestors is the sacred duty of descendants. This is an important job. This is one of the ways to reveal white spots in national history, to recognize the great merits of the best representatives of the Great Steppe, who played an important role in world history, and objectively convey all this information to the world community.